Hey guys, Clarke here, and it's time for another deconstruction. This week I'm in a lovely hotel room in Cincinnati. Not much to do here, so thought I would do a bit of a deconstruction for you guys. I'm going to be going through my record for The Club, which is out now on Needed Pains, which is Denson Peaker's label. Again, this record is another very simple one, but the story behind this is quite fun. I actually did this on a plane. I don't often like to write on a plane, but this just seemed to work. So yeah, I'm just going to go through this with you guys. It's going to be quite a quick one, I can imagine. Maybe not. Any questions, put it in the comments below. And yeah, let me know what you think. So let's start with the main thing that I would say on this record. As you can see, it's 20 tracks. It's actually only 19 tracks because Machine is there. So I'm going to go through all the elements actually to start with, which is, let's go here, and then you can say you got the kick, which is pretty heavy, and then you got the shaker, then you got the snare, loop, hat loop. Oof, love that sound. And then you've got rides, shaker. Over here you got some claps. Vocal.
For a club.
Horn is over here. And then underneath you've got the bass. Very simple. Choir voice. Organ. And then you've just got some clicks, crackles underneath. So let's start with, let's go into the kick. I'm gonna give you the kick by itself with actually out any EQ and overdrive on. So with this kick was like, as you can hear, it's still quite subby. If we go into it, we can see with the EQ analyzer, there's like a lot of sub. So what I do on most of my kicks, I always add an overdrive. So as you can see, it's like 8.75 dB in drive at the tone of 20,000 hertz. So you'll hear exactly what it does, just makes it a bit beefier. And then on top of that, I wanted to add some more click in the high, so the click just like really hits through. That is the kick. Very simple, but it's extremely effective. This kick pretty much drives the whole record. So after kind of working on the kick, I use my trusty snare, which I'm gonna play to you without the EQ. So I've actually stolen this snare from a record that I absolutely love, and you can hear the kick that I've stolen it from. So what I do is to EQ that out. All I do is, I'll show you in real time. So this is what it is without any EQ. So all I do is EQ about there. So you've got everything from 142 hertz completely out, and then I just boost around there just to like get it sounding good and cutting through. And then when I add the kick, this is what it sounds like. There's there's no like clash of frequencies. Everything's just fitting nicely together. Shaker hat. This is something that I love. It's just a very quiet kind of shaker, but it's like got this really nice groove to it, which I actually made myself from a sample. But the way that it's got that, like, it's kind of quite lazy. Although it's on like every beat, it's quite a lazy sound, and I think that's because I've got the sound shifter on. So yeah, if you listen to it like that, it just sounds a bit brighter, but I didn't really like it like that. If you listen to it with a snare and kick, it just sounds a bit too like light, whereas when I've got the sound shifter on, it goes automatically, it just makes it like a little bit more gritty and a little bit more like, I don't know, I don't even know what the word is to explain, but yeah. So that's the shaker, very, very simple. Choir voice. So this is actually this synthesizer, which is actually on Logic itself, built-in synthesizer, where you can get choir voices. So I'm gonna play it without any effects or anything like that. So all I did, I remember actually, you can see that a lot of these, let me close that down, a lot of these are like off the line, so they're not actually like square on quantize, which just gives it a little bit more swing. This is the reason why it's like this, is because I actually typed it in on my laptop computer rather than plugging them in, so I wanted to like get a little bit of swing on there. What you can do is you can add swing this way on Logic, but I was just being lazy and just tapped it in and it just sounded alright, so I kind of left it. There's no like real reasons why, or no reasons for me to change. So what I have on these effects is, I don't know why I have the channel EQ, because there's actually nothing on there, but I have an Echo Boy, which is from Sound Toys. This is great effect, just an echo unit. Tau Reverb, which is a free reverb unit, and then I have the Creative Filter from Sonoxkis, or however you say it. This is an amazing filter. I use these three the most when it comes to kind of making anything creative. So all of these are like purely only creative audio units, really, effects units. So as you can see, if we go into the automation of this, I'm gonna play a bit of the so you'll hear the reverb come up, and then on this you'll also see the mix of the Echo Boy come up, as you can see. This mix moving. I believe there's a Tau reverb going up. And then it will cut down when it get to here. And it just straightens up. So I'm going to play that in context of the record with just the elements that you've heard. So the kick, so you've heard the choir, the kick, the shaker and the snare. And then that just brings it back round. So it's purely, all the effects are just purely for like effects units, really, not to make the sound any better or anything like that. Moving on, let's go for one of the most important things, bassline. This baby here, let's make it all a bit bigger for you guys to see. This is the laziest bassline ever, and like I said, because I did it on the plane, it's just wanted to do something super simple, and obviously simple always works. So this is literally 1, 2, 3, 4 notes up. So it's D sharp, E, F, F sharp, and it's just going up. So if you hear it, it's literally nothing happening in that record. So all this is like a sine wave from the EXS24. You load it up and that's exactly what you get. I haven't even added any drive or anything. This is just how you get it. I've not made any changes to the actual synth itself. Channel EQ is doing nothing. I probably put it there to see if I could EQ some super low ends out, but it probably sounded pants. Overdrive, again, a little bit of drive at up to 1.75 dB on a 20,000 hertz on tone. And then compressor, which is the main thing, I've actually sidechained it to the kick. So if you hear it without, you hear like it just elongates everything, whereas when the sidechain's on, it just like gives it a little bit more groove. So all that's doing is the kick is sending a message to the compressor, which is turning the compressor on, which is turning the bass down every time the kick hits. So let's hear the kick and the bass together. So as you can hear in the mix, the kick is like doing the most of the driving of the record. The bass is just there to like fill those little gaps in where the kick isn't there. Adds a little bit of groove because obviously the notes go up. That is it with the bass. It's very, very simple. So let's go into the hat loop. So this is actually from a sample, just a sample that I have in my splice kit up here. What have I done to this? Let's listen to it before it has anything on. Okay, so that is that. Obviously, it's quite a hard techno record, so I wanted to kind of give it more grit. Like I said in the shakers below, I just like wanted to pitch everything down, but so using this is the little altar boy from Sound Toys. So instead of just using a pitcher or pitch control, this kind of does everything and more when it comes to pitch control. As you can see, it's maxed to wet, but I've added a drive, so it adds more distortion to it. So I'm going to play it with it all completely drive, and then I'm going to slowly add the mix in so you can hear it. So it's like makes it a lot lower, a lot grittier, and it also kind of makes it a little bit swingy, lazy kind of vibes. Then on top of that, I've added a tower reverb, which just fills the hats out a little bit, and this does. So it just drags the hats. That's all it is. Pretty simple again. So second part that I love, the organ. This is from an organ on Logic. Again, this is pretty much seems like it's an all-in-house Logic band camp right now. But this is called the Vintage B3. Great if you want to write an organ piece. I don't often use it, but this worked. I'm gonna play it without any effects or any kind of processing. and then I'm just going to play it with what I've got on here, which is, I don't think you're going to be able to notice much apart from the EQ. So with the EQ, all I want to do is just really boost around the 500 to 2000 frequencies, just so it like really cuts through on the actual record. If we listen to it with the kick, the bass, so in the mix it just fills that gap where nothing else is really sitting, which especially if you add the choir voice in, it's just there. You don't really notice it there, but when you're in the club or when you're listening, you're like, it's just constantly there in the background, and you're like, if you take it out of the record, it works, but then when you add it back in, kind of just gives it a little bit more extra like funk and groove, which is what I wanted to make. I wanted to make like a funky techno record. So moving on to the main part of the record is the vocals. Actually, sorry, forgetting about that. Going back to the organ, I just added a towel for effects, for like when it's building up in the breakdowns. So you'll hear. I also used a crystallizer, which is this little baby, which is again Soundtoys crystallizer. This is really hard to explain what it does, but it's a granular echo synthesizer. Yeah, I don't really know what that means. I do know what that means, but it kind of is too geeky to go into. But it makes things sound really, really fucking good. So this is what it does. But also you can do like loads of really cool effects. So I'll show you what it also can do. So we'll play it, and then the echo resamples and it keeps going round and round. And then if I want, I can pitch it up. Or I can bring it all the way down. So it's a really cool effect. All I did was literally just add the wet and dry with 0% pitch. There's so much you can do on this thing. You can tweak it and go into like the real depths of it. But again, I just used it more as almost like a DJ tool, really. That's a lot of the time when I use effects. So, vocals. For the club, this was recorded on my phone, wherever my phone is. This was recorded on my phone and I literally said for the club in my voice notes, and this is what we got. So I'll play you what it sounds like.
For the club.
I'll play you what it sounded like at the beginning.
For the club.
So I actually recorded the vocal before I wrote this record on the plane. So I had the vocal on my phone and I just airdropped it over to my computer. I always had an idea to write a record that said for the club, that is literally just a stomper. So let me just go through all of the kind of processes that I did on the vocal. Let me zoom in a little bit. So for the club, channel EQ, Logic channel.
For the club.
So without
for
it,
the club. For the club.
You'll hear there's like
for the club.
Low end
for the
frequencies.
club.
Let me put another channel one
for
on
the
there.
club. For the club. For the club.
So you can see
for the club.
There's like low end frequencies here, and there's nothing really popping off here. So what I did was it's probably messed everything up now. So channel EQ did that
for the club.
So it kind of sounds like it sounds like one of those microphones. I forgot the word, but those microphones that you get shouted at festivals. Sound shifter, wave sound shifter. I've pitched it down by -4 semitones.
For the club.
That's turned it into that. The micro shifter, one of my favorite tools to use on vocals. This is fully wet, fully detuned, and fully delayed.
For the club. For the club. For the club.
So if you're hearing in speakers, it kind of widens it as well. So you're not just getting it straight in the front of the mix, it's like pulls it out fully. JJP vocals, classic wave vocal thing. I don't know what you would call this, but this is just an overall thing that makes your vocal sound good.
For the club.
So it just clears it out. There's a bit of delay, a bit of echo in there. De-esser, which stops this of the vocals. Bit of compressor, bit of EQ, kind of does everything. I really recommend getting that. And the little altar boy again, as you can see, I've not done anything on the pitch, but I have added drive. So if you hear it now,
For the club.
that's what adds the like really grittiness of it. Echo boy, I believe
For the club.
this is just for effects. So if I go in there and so you can see the automation of this is like going up and down.
For the club.
Just an echo.
For the club.
And I've just automated the mix. That's all it is.
For the club.
I've set it on cheap tape delay. I really like this cheap tape delay setting. It kind of adds a bit of vintageness to it. That's the vocal. So let's hear the vocal with everything you've heard. Vocal, snare, rides, hat. I don't think I played the rides. Shaker, kick, bass, choir, organ. So that's that. The horn, classic horn sound. I got this from a sample pack. Nothing really to shout about on this. I've EQ'd it up so it hits through. Also added some towel reverb. Nothing really to shout about. That's about it. Little bit of effects that I like to use and put into my tracks. So I've taken some of the low end out of that from like 85 down. I probably technically should have pushed it to about 200, but I like the bass that it comes through, just adds to the record. Rides. Did I do the rides? I can't remember. No, I don't think I have. So the rides, again, is just a sound shifter. I actually pitched them up. Tiny amount, like 77 cents. So you can hear the difference. That way, it just, the reason why I did it, because it sounded good. We got some claps here, which, if you listen to them, tiny amount of EQ, and I don't know if there's any reverb. The reverb comes at the end when I'm bringing them out of the record. So instead of just stopping them dead, I like to just bring them in a little bit more, or bring them out a little bit more, so you'll hear it. So you'll hear the tail. And then the last part of the track that I don't think I've gone through is this kind of radio voices distort. It's just a sample. I like adding textures to the record, and if you play the record without it, like, you probably won't even notice, but then let's play it. It just adds a little bit of texture. It just fills the like top ends up, and it fills a bit of the mids and the lows. All I've done with this is just added the famous Nicky Romero Kickstarter compressor. It's the same thing as a side chain, but it just is doing it itself. It's not using a compressor to create the side chain. So you'll hear this more at the beginning of of my records. Without, with. It just adds a little bit of flavour. We have some 909 rides here as well. So this is just kind of a variation from the rides up here. There's no effects on these, no EQ, but I believe I made the rides in here, which are these rides, which is actually from a sample pack that I have. I use these rides a lot in my record. And that is these, I'm pretty sure, but a lot quieter. So yeah, that is the whole track. I've got some more effects down here, so white noises, which I use in most of my records, and there's no effects. And then I've got another white noise effect, which it's not really a white noise effect, it's more of like a big riser, just to add tension to the record. That is it when it comes to sections of parts of the record. With regards to the arrangement, this is like super easy club record. Most of my arrangements are here. So it goes 1 minute for a mix for a DJ to mix. You've got probably 1 minute. You got a 30-second mini breakdown. You've got a lot. You've got then probably a 2 minute. Probably got another minute section. But in this section I wanted to like not just put a standard breakdown. So what I did is I brought it into a mini breakdown at 240. And then at 257 I brought in the kick drums, but only for a bar. And then I brought it out, and then back in, out, back in, out, back in, and then out. And then I did out for 2 phrases, and then what I did here on this I then did a stretch of the time vocal. Someone just tried to come in my room, don't know who it was. And this is what this sounds like. And how I did that was, I'm going to show you, it's really simple. I bounced one of these vocals in place. So bounce in place. And then...
Housekeeping.
No thank you.
Is someone checked into this room?
Yes.
May I have your name, sir?
Clarke.
Thank you.
Sorry about that. So I then bounced that in place. So then what I would have done is taken that there, and by holding Option on Logic and then dragging, that would then bring that to here, which will then stretches it out. And that's the record. With regards to mix downs, as you can see, I've did barely anything on the whole record. What I did do, because everything was like slamming on the master, I bust every kind of section out. So you can see I've got the kick, I've got the bass, I've got all the drums going into there, into bus 3, I've got the vocals going into bus 4, effects going into bus 5, and the organ going into bus 6. All I did was bring them all down by minus 10 dB. This made it easier for when I would add my mastering chain on, and then with my mastering chain I would then, oh my god, I would then hello. Clarke. Clarke. Ah, that's annoying. Back to the mix down. So I had to just bring all the levels down, which meant that I could then add my mastering channel onto it. From my mastering channel, I would then be able to take my limiter off the mastering channel and then give that to the mastering engineer who's actually going to master it. So my mastering channel consists of an imager, which just like monos everything below a certain bandwidth, and then widens everything over a certain amount of bandwidth. Compressor, which just brings the whole track together. EQ, doesn't do much. I'm just adding a few EQs here and there. This changes every time I use a different track or I make a different track. C6 multi-band compressor. Again, this is pretty complicated. I honestly still don't fully know how to use it, but I use it to the best of my ability and it seems to work pretty well. I can get some really nice frequencies through that I'm not going to get in just a normal mix down. Then I use the isotope limiter. This just pushes everything up, makes it sound a lot louder. And then I just use the multimeter just to analyze everything. So you'll be able to see. And then when you go to the analyzer, you'll be able to see where. And that is the deconstruction of my track called For the Club, which is out now. Any questions, please answer below. Or in the comments, and I will try and answer them in another video. Please share this video. If you are on YouTube, please hit subscribe. Yeah, and thank you so much for taking a listen. Hope you enjoyed the track. The track is out now. Follow the links in the comments below to listen. Huge love. Cheers.